I just ran the Melbourne Marathon, finishing inside the biggest and best stadium in Australia, and here's how it went. It all started Friday morning. After getting one final 5 AM run in, we set off driving to Melbourne, and about 8 hours later, we were there. Tired, but we were there. All ready for my biggest marathon to date. We headed straight out to the MCG, that way I could collect my race bib and we could check out the rest of the expo. The setup was super impressive. Even 2 days out, the place was absolutely buzzing, filled with runners and their supporters alike. We then stopped by the Wall of Fame to find my name amongst all the other marathon runners, as well as a few familiar names from Adelaide. Another really cool touch for the race. Then, just to jump forward, we ate some food, we ate some more food, and I did a shakeout run on the hotel treadmill. Ideally, I would have done this outside just to shake out the legs a bit better, but given that we ended up staying in the city centre, I didn't want to have to deal with traffic or traffic lights or anything that was going to slow me down when I was trying to run at a specific pace. So I locked in for a few kilometres, jamming out to some incredible music. We then ate some more food and did a bit of shopping, because we're in Melbourne. Saturday night we went to Barclay's Kitchen, about 4 kilometres outside of the city centre of Melbourne. It's a place I found on Instagram and it is definitely worth the trip, especially just before a marathon when you're trying to carb load. Basically what they do is they take a cob loaf filled with warm cheesy goodness, which is already an incredible creation. Then they chuck in your favourite pasta dish and create a carb filled heaven. I genuinely cannot recommend this place enough. Even if you hate running, go to Barclay's Kitchen. Then race day. Sunday morning I woke up at 4:30 to have my last bit of food before the race. So here you can see me barely awake eating some jam on bread. Turns out the hotel didn't actually have a toaster, so it was jam on bread, not jam on toast. In no way does that impact my run, but I thought you might like the extra detail. I then got ready and we headed to the MCG to meet everybody. As we were walking out of the hotel, we saw a few people coming back from their nights out in town. And at that point I started to question a few life decisions. Regardless of that though, we headed out to the tram. Cold, sleepy, but happy. On the way we passed several kebab shops full of people eating their garlicky filled goodness, but I had a race to run and I did not want to throw up. We made it to the MCG and headed straight for the toilets, as with this many people on race day, the toilet line is always going to be crazy. Like at this point, I didn't even need the toilet, but I knew the line was only going to get longer. I then did some stretching and a bit of a run around just to get all warmed up for the day. We then met up with Matt, and shout outs to Matt because he did his first marathon on the big stage and absolutely crushed it. Right at the pink person on his side, that's Matt.
Oh, yeah, in the black.
Yeah! Yeah, Matty! Look at Matty! Killed it! It was at this point we realised the start line was actually about 10 to 15 minutes away from where we were, so we quickly started trekking towards the right spot. Before you knew it, we were starting. My goal for the race was to run it in under 3.5 hours, which works out to just under 5 minutes for every K that I run. As the setup for Melbourne is incredible, they have paces at a range of different speeds that you can tag along to. The only issue for me, however, was because we got to the start line later than I would have liked, with thousands of runners between me and the 3 hours 30 minute pacer. Not a great start to the day, but I was motivated, so opted to raw dog it and control the pace for myself. And with so many other runners joining you for the marathon, it's always difficult to start at the pace that you want. Whether you have a person in front of you or you're bumping elbows, it's never comfortable for the first kilometre or two. But knowing there's a long stretch ahead filled me with a bit of confidence just to trust the process and stick to the plan. As with any race, you see some incredible and super creative signs, but I wanted to give a special shout out to this guy as he definitely had the best singlet in the entire race. Over the course of the 42Ks, it is completely understandable to experience a range of emotions. There were times when I was comfortable and happy, and there's also usually some moments of depletion and absolute despair. All in a day's work for a marathon runner. The absolute peak though is running into the MCG. The sheer size of it has you in absolute awe. Then on top of that you add the packed stands with thousands of supporters coming out to the finish line to cheer you all on. Thank you. Cheers. In terms of fueling for this race, I was planning to take a gel every 30 to 35 minutes and have at least one drink at each aid station along the way. I did actually manage to stick to this, which I was really proud of, as in my last race you might have seen I experienced my first ever bonk. If you haven't seen it, don't worry, I'll link it at the end of this video, that way you can share in my struggle. For Melbourne though, it was definitely warmer than expected and far more wind on the uphills than anybody would have liked. But we made it, and I've got the medal and the t-shirt to prove it. And I definitely need a close-up of this medal because it looks incredible. We've got the MCG on that side. And then we've got some incredible Indigenous art on the other side. Definitely the best medal I've ever had. And although I did finish slower than I would have liked. I didn't manage to run in under 3.5 hours, but I did manage a personal best. And my new quickest time for the marathon is 3 hours and 33 minutes. Annoyingly, my Strava tells me I ran almost 400 meters longer than the marathon distance. So my plan for the next race is to keep that to a minimum, hopefully trim those 3 minutes off and actually run a sub 3.5 hour marathon. I have now failed twice, but third time's the charm, so next one, it is happening. My next full marathon will be the London Marathon in April of 2025. In the lead up to that, I will be doing a ton of fundraising between now and April to raise money for children with cancer in the UK. And if you would like to donate, I've added my link to the fundraising page in the comments below. And if you would like to get involved, I've got some really exciting things planned and it's going to be a whole lot of fun.